Good afternoon. So, today's topic we will discuss organization culture. Okay? Everyone knows what is culture? So, let me hear your views. What do you think is culture? What is culture? Then we will come to organization. Let us hear their views first, then we come to your side. Culture. Okay? Culture is traditions. Traditions, values, followed by group of people. Followed by group of people. Do you agree to that definition? Do you want to add anything to that? Activities, cultural activities. So, these result in activities or behavior. Okay? Right. There is something which we call institutionalization. And when we talk of institutionalization, we say it is a precursor to culture. What is the meaning of precursor? That it comes before a culture comes in. It is a kind of preparation for formation of a culture or the creation of a culture. That is precursor. Creating an unique set of common, shared. So, you see the important words here are common and shared. Why? Why is that important? Because we know that a group of people comprises of individuals, and we know that individuals have values and different values, unique values depending on their upbringing, their background, environment, conditioning, their personality development. All right. Now, when you have a group of individuals, we assume that certain values within the group are common, and when we talk of culture, we are relying on that common value which is shared by a number of people within the group. That is the key word. Okay. And these common values which transcend and redefine the values of the founders. Now, we are talking in an organizational setting. Any organization or company is founded by people. Here we have got here EDS, all right, founded by Ross Perot in America, Sony in Japan, Eastman Kodak in America, and our India, there is J.N. Tata, the founder of Tata Steel Company. They had certain values. Whenever the founders found a company, they themselves have values, and what do? They instill these values into people whom they hire within the organization. So, they have a big role in shaping early in the organization's life the values which they like to pass on. And here it says creating a unique set of common shared values which transcends and redefines the values of the founder. That means, it goes beyond. As a company is in existence for a number of years, it grows, it changes, it assumes different characteristics because of the businesses they are in, the kind of people that join, all right, and the activities they carry out. And institutionalization, which is a precursor of the culture, is adding more value to what was thought of by the founders themselves. All right. For instance, the founders may have first thought of basically the here and now problems. Their culture may have been to do very hard work and earn good money. That was the culture. But as the company grows and changes and spreads out into other areas of operation, you institutionalize other values, all right, to transcend the original values set. But the core values usually set by the founders, they continue as the company continues in existence. Any questions? All right. The organization then what happens? They assume a personality of its own, that is the organizational personality. We know individuals have their own personality, but even the organization assumes personality of its own in a sense which is as distinct as that of an individual. Right? Is this concept easy or difficult? Each organization, if you join, if you work in one company and leave and join another company, you will feel palpably that the culture of the company you join may not be exactly the same as the culture of the company you have left. Similarly, educational institutions. Do you see a change now that you have joined IIT? You are all in different colleges. Do you see a change in the culture? Huh? Some sense. Can you name some of the values which are different here in IIT from your previous college?
For example, you cannot reach to all people here directly.
You can't reach to all people here. All right. Whereas in your old college, you could reach anyone you wanted to. So, what does that translate into? What is the culture here? Is the culture such that it is compartmentalized? Is it bureaucratic? Is that, how is it? What is your feeling here? The culture here in this institute, is it different from the culture which you had in the earlier college? What is the difference? You are from the same college, no? So, do you feel any difference in the culture? What he feels is that it is more bureaucratized, it is difficult to access people culturally, and that is accepted. It is accepted that yes, you should access only certain people and not others. That is his feeling as compared to his old college. What about yours? Not. So, there is not much difference, in other words, otherwise you would have been able to say straight away. Anyway, so organizations create their own code of accepted conduct and behavior. That is clear? Culture throws up its own accepted code of conduct and behavior. If you look at nations, at a more higher plane than organization, nationally, we are very familiar with national cultures, culture of the Western countries. They have a lot of differences with the culture of the Oriental countries, right? So, in the same sense, even in organizations, culturally you have differences. Sometimes they are very marked if they are across industries. Say the culture of organizations in the software industry may be quite different to cultures of organization in the, let us say, the steel industry, or the type of governance, the cultures in private sector organization may be different to cultures in the public sector organization. So, due to these various factors, you will find difference in culture in the organizations. And then, as we said in the beginning, this institutionalization is the forerunner to what is now called an organizational culture. Okay. Any questions? Yes? Forerunner means precursor. Precursor means forerunner, which means what comes before. All right? If you have a chief minister coming or a minister, you have a pilot car coming in the beginning, that is running in front before, that is forerunner. All right? Okay. So, if you want a definition of organization culture, here is a definition: a belief based on a common perception. Again, the word is common and shared. Remember, these are the two important words. Common perception by the individuals in the organization which constitute common shared values. So, the building block of a culture is the common shared values. And what is the value? If you remember, we studied this topic of values. What is the value? Core belief, isn't it? A fundamental belief. about something. And then we had said we have two types of values. One is fundamental value, all right, the other is, and which we call as the terminal value, isn't it? And the other is the enabling, that is those values, all right, which which enables you to reach the terminal values. So, therefore, that translates into behavior. Your values will finally translate into activities and behavior. So, constituents of the organization culture, these are some of the constituents, some of the elements of culture. What does it say here? First, risk taking by innovative experimentation. You will have some organizations where the culture encourages you to take risks through innovation. And on the other side of the scale, you have other organizations which do not encourage you. You get a feeling that you better not take risks here, because failures, if the risk is taken and it does not work out, failures are punished, they are frowned upon by your bosses in the organization. So, it does not encourage risk taking. Value for fundamental details. Here is one common belief or value in an organization which forms an element of the culture. Like we say that in certain companies, they are very, very particular on eye for detail. They like you to be detailed. They do not like to be understand things on the surface or do on the surface. They want you, if you want to prosper in that organization, you must have your fundamentals very clear, and in your work you must bring to bear your eye for detail. That is the value. Other organizations may not have it. In the first organization, any letter you send out, for instance, they will be very particular. There should be no spelling mistakes, no grammar mistakes in that letter. It should be done in a proper format. If it is an internal letter, it should go in an internal memo form. If it is going outside the company, it must go in a letterhead and so on. And they will not tolerate, you will be pulled up if you do not follow these detailed procedures. So, this is one of the elements of the culture. These are examples. Emphasis on results versus process. Some companies you will find culturally they always pursue results, irrespective of how you get the results. What is more important to them is get the result, whereas other companies they may be equally concerned about the process. What is the manner in which you are achieving the results? If your result is to score high marks, all right, if your value is you must get high marks, you may cheat. The process you use is cheating. Some organizations may tolerate it because the value is such that they tolerate. Other organizations they will not tolerate it. So, that is the process, and some organizations will pay equal emphasis on the process as well as the outcome. So, only doing the process right, but getting no result at the end is also not acceptable in all the organizations, is not it? But always there is some emphasis either on the value, either on the process or on the outcome or the result. Importance to people in the organization. What does this mean? Yeah, some organizations you have culture which is more egalitarian. What is egalitarian? Egalitarian means equal. You may be 2 steps in rank above someone, right, but you do not treat someone 2 steps or 3 steps below as very much different to yourself. That is the culture. It is a kind of informal culture. You consider the individual and not the rank or his position, whereas other companies may be highly bureaucratized. That is, if you are 3 steps above, then you would not like someone who is 3 steps below to even come and meet you. They said, why are you coming to me? You are so junior. So, that is not an egalitarian kind of culture. So, they give importance to people or position. Then focus towards team working. Have you seen that? Some companies, they discourage you to go and work in teams because they feel you are wasting your time, you are chit chatting, whereas others, they discourage you to work on your own. Your boss will tell you, have you discussed this? You are making a recommendation and you say, no sir. They said, why? You go and first discuss, and if it is acceptable, or when you come to me, you come with something which will work, it can be implemented, and for that you go and discuss with people before you arrive at any recommendation. So, then there is a tendency there culturally to encourage team working. Okay. Then value driven positive and assertive behavior. What is the kind of behavior which a culture encourages? Value driven, that means it is not driven by a person. You are not praising a person or flattering a person, you are going by the value. If you have a discussion in a group and you are about to take some decision, the decision should not be based on what the boss likes to hear. If you think that something is good, you should state that freely and fearlessly, because the culture encourages it. You won't be punished. In fact, you will be rewarded for an independent thinking person, being an independent thinking person. But the culture must support that, because if the culture does not support, what will you do? After all, you are a human being. You may not take the risk. You will follow the cultural lines, isn't it? And the unwritten rule may be, you sit quiet, whatever the boss says, you nod your head in agreement. So, these are cultural things which are very powerful in shaping the activities of the organization and finally, the performance and the outcome. Status quo coefficient or stability syndrome. What does that mean? Status quo means what? Today what is there, let it be there tomorrow, day after, let it be stable. Do not take any steps or decisions which disturbs this state, let it be stable. That means, you try for a no change. Is that good for the organization? Maybe sometimes, but usually not in a changing environment, in an uncertain world, because if the environment changes, you have to change to keep in step, all right, take corrective actions. So, status quo coefficient or stability syndrome, this may be the culture somewhere. So, these are various examples of the elements which are cultural elements, which you will notice if you exist in that culture. If you join a new company, slowly you will notice these things. Then there is a attempt to try and classify the cultures. So, the types of cultures. Culture of the organization can be seen or felt by the employees. I have put that in inverted commas. Why? Because when you say literally, you cannot see a culture, isn't it? It is not an object which you can see, but you can feel. Can you feel it? Like you feel, you can't feel it also, but at the same time you can sense it, isn't it? Not by your five senses, but how do you sense it? Because of conversations that happen between people, because what your boss tells you, what your subordinate may tell you. Okay. From that you infer and deduce what is the kind of culture, and that is what I mean by saying you can see or feel this culture if you are an employee of the organization. Any questions? No. Do employees see the organization as fair in its dealings, or the stakeholders dynamic in its working, and so on? How do the employees see? Because they do discuss among themselves, amongst friends, and colleagues, and they discuss about the organization, and many of the things they discuss has a direct bearing on the culture of that organization. Why? Because the culture is one of the powerful drivers of the behavior you do there and the activities that you do. That is why, and this is constantly discussed. Sometimes you say, इस company में कुछ होने वाला नहीं है, because this is unfair. All promotions are given, all right, by favoritism. Merit has no place. On the other hand, you have companies where they generally employees feel, no, he did not get a promotion, or frankly, he did not deserve it either. The chap who got the promotion, he deserved the promotion. They see it as a fair. Culture is fair. Culture as seen by the employees is descriptive as distinct from being judgmental or evaluative. What does that mean? These are some giveaways, particularly in conversation which employees have among themselves. If they are always judging the actions and policies taken by the management of the organization, what are they doing? They are evaluating, all right. But if they simply describe as a news item, this has happened, that means it is a culture which is acceptable culture, is generally free and frank, what is expected is done and people discuss that. But they are not sitting in judgment over whatever is happening, about the decisions which the management is taking. Okay. Job satisfaction, however, is seen and felt by employees and is definitely evaluative in respect of satisfaction or otherwise. This is a very important issue to the individual employee, isn't it? How satisfied you are with your job, and that will mean a host of things. Are you satisfied with the hygiene of the department? Are you satisfied with the motivating factors within the department? Do you have a good supervisor? Do you vibe with him? Do you have good colleagues? Is the kind of work that you do something which you are able to do, or you are untrained for it and you find it difficult to do? So, these are various factors, all right, by which you derive job satisfaction or otherwise, all right. And this is always evaluative, because if you are not happy, you blame someone, isn't it? And if you are happy, do you praise anyone? Maybe not overtly, but generally you think it is a good company, a good department, you are happy working there. You may not state so explicitly, but it comes out in your work behavior. Generally you enjoy your work, you do not absent yourself. Okay. Types of organizational cultures. Often in large organizations, there are several cultures, not just one culture. Dominant culture. You have some culture which is dominant, comprising of the common shared values of most of the members of the organization. And also within the dominant culture, you got subculture. Like IIT may have its own dominant culture, right, but it has different departments, it has different employees, like you have the staff and you have the registrars departments and you have the teaching departments, then you have the schools and the centers. So, these are also places where you can have subcultures which develop, again because the common shared values may be a little different from the common shared values of other departments. So, you have subcultures which are subsets of the dominant culture where large organizations exist. Can you think of any example in IIT? You have friends in any other departments? Architect department, yes. They have a different culture, he feels. How do you come to that conclusion? You are comparing it with your own department, right?
Generally, their course is having 5 years.
5 years course, okay.
Start with one batch and end with another batch.
Right. So, he says the very working, the design of the course itself makes for a different kind of culture, because they mix with number of batches. The undergraduates in a department and the postgraduates, they may be little subset cultures, right. The undergraduates, they take more part because they stay longer here, they stay for 4 years, postgraduates stay for 2 years. So, undergraduates involve themselves more culturally in the activities of the institute than the postgraduate, and that subculture may be cutting across departments. All postgraduates in whichever department they may be, because the fact is that they stay shorter, they may develop a culture which is a little bit of a, shall I say, hands off culture. That means you come here, take your postgraduate degrees in 2 years and go away. Research scholars may have a different subculture. What could be their subculture? More association, they are focused kind of work. So, in their case not the time, but the work, because they also stay for 3 or 4 years, right, maybe, may not be in the institute, but some of them stay. So, time is same as undergraduates, but they are very much focused. So, it is a type of work which is helping them to have another subculture. Okay? So, subcultures usually develop in different departments or units or in different geographical locations. So, if we have, let us say IIT, a small campus in Kolkata and a small campus in Bhubaneswar. Now, Bhubaneswar is another state, you have different language there, all right, and the kind of people that they are slightly culturally different from the kind of people in West Bengal maybe. So, that very fact may make a little difference to the kind of culture that you have in the same IIT's organization, but geographically different. Subcultures usually include dominant culture plus additional shared values unique to the members of that unit or department. Any questions? Okay. Cultures and subcultures have significant influence in affecting the behavior of the members. See, that is what we are interested in the organizational setting. As management of organizations, we are interested in culture, subculture for what reason? Ultimately, as I always have said, we are interested in two things. What are those? I bring you back to it again and again. One is performance of the organization, and second, job satisfaction. So, that in the long run, you have happy people who give good performance. So, both must go hand in hand, and because culture have significant influence in affecting the behavior of members, therefore, it is important to us. See here, you have a dominant culture and subculture, first I said. Now, you have a strong culture and a weak culture. In a strong culture, the organization's common shared values are not only widely shared, but also held with high intensity. So, they are very entrenched values which are common and shared. The intensity is high. Strong cultures have a high degree of influence on the behavior of the members. One direct manifestation of strong culture can be reduced employee turnover. What does this mean? Do you understand this? Employees do not leave the organization if it is a strong cultural organization. They are bound to it, huh? Yeah. Birlas, very few people left Birlas. Why? It had a strong culture of what? What was that element which was strong? Maybe the value of that organization was, if you are our employee, we look after you, we care for you, you do your work well, and we will look after all your needs. Not only needs in terms of salary, that means you are not a contract employee. You know the HR approach what we talked about? We look at your well-being in sickness or health, whatever, whenever your needs are there, we look after you. Therefore, they do not leave Birlas. You know, the strong culture is there, turnover is not there. Clear? There may be other cultures which is directly opposite. They say, we have got a contract with you, you deliver well and you are with us. Tomorrow you do not deliver well, company's orders are low, so you take a VRS, we give you. Go away, because we do not have job for you. There are companies like that. Which industry? IT industry, he says. Yes, it is true. When the going is good, you get very good salaries there. But if they do not have job, what do? They bench you. What is the meaning of bench? Go and sit in that bench. And if you sit for too long, they say, now the bench is not there, please go away. So, these are strong cultural differences which affect not only the organization in its performance, but also the employees who work in the organization. Okay? And as managers, you need to be aware of it, and you have to provide such a culture which brings joy to the employees and brings joy to the stakeholders of the organization. Should have good performance also, not a country club kind of a atmosphere where people come, they enjoy, they do not do much work, there is not much supervision. then who will be unhappy? Shareholders will be unhappy, right? So, cultures shape employee behavior. We said that before. So, within a strong organization, the culture, in a strong organizational culture, the behavior of employees are more consistent with the cultural norms. See, the implication here is, if the culture is weak, then the behavior may not be consistent. Some people behave with the shared values, others do not behave, they get away with it. But if it is strong, it is like under a discipline or a regimen. The culture provides that, not the supervision. And what we said, culture provides unwritten rules, not written rules, unwritten rules of behavior, and the people conform to it. And if it is a strong culture, they conform very strongly to that, they do not deviate. Therefore, in a sense, these norms are a substitute for formal rules and regulations. So, when we studied organization structure and design, we remember we said that there are three elements, fundamental elements of all organizations, which are accepted as common. And what are these elements? We said, you remember? Exams are coming, you have to remember now. One was complexity, remember? Other was formalization, you see, formalization, do's and don'ts, rules and procedures. And what was the third one? Anyone remember? Human memory, they say, is short. So, third is centralization. What does that mean? At what level is the decision making? Is it top level? Then it is highly centralized. If it is lower down, it is more decentralized. So, culture provides unwritten rules. So, in a way, it is a substitute for formalization. Hence, in strong cultures, there is less need for establishing the formalization process. Now, let us take an example of a family unit, husband, wife and 10 children. I am taking not today's family, I am taking grandfather's time, your great grandfather's time. 10 children were common in those days, right? Do they have a strong shared value usually, or would they have had a family? Yes or no? Yes. Yeah, maybe one or two are prodigal people, they do not, but more or less the family is a very strong cultural unit, is it not? So, in that strong cultural unit, do you have formalization, written down rules, regulations? And in those days, remember that family of 10, there were 5, 6, 7 families all living together. We called it extended family. Maybe there are 50 people, maybe the kitchen is providing meals for 50, 100 people, big families living in villages. Were there written rules? No. They were all unwritten. It was all culture which provided the do's and don'ts, right? And people abided by that. Why? Because it was a strong culture. Today, even if you have, extended family is very uncommon, but a huge, say the rich people, some business communities, they would have a big mansion and many brothers, you see, and their children and grandchildren, they all live together. So, culture is still there, but may not be that strong. Maybe one of the grandchildren went to disco, came back 3 a.m. in the morning, that is frowned upon. Maybe another son went and had a love marriage with different community. So, that cultural bonds are weaker today. Agree or not? Yes. All right. So, strong cultures require less formalization. National cultures transcend organizational cultures. So, a organization is a subset of the whole nation, is it not? So, national cultures, we say, they transcend organizational cultures. And what is the direct implication? Implication is, you as a company, if you are an Indian company, let us say, and now you want to establish a venture in China, because you are growing, you are doing well, you have to take note of this, that when you establish a factory in China, you have to take care that the employees who are Chinese, they have a different kind of culture, all right, and their culture, their, even if you set up your own company, ABC Company Limited there, it is an Indian company, Indian management, but the kind of organizational culture which will happen in your unit, but the Chinese unit, that culture will be more dominated by China's natural culture, not your own. So, therefore, you have to take care of that. Big organizations, after the World War II, you had Americans, you see, who had a lot of spread of their business in Europe, because Europe was war ravaged. Germany had to be built up, it was in ruins, So, a lot of industries from America. England won the war, of course, but they were also ravaged. There was destruction and ruin, the economy was on its last legs. So, what happened is, when Americans went in there, they had to establish a lot of businesses, factories and so on, and they had to learn that culturally you have to make a fit if you want to exist profitably in another national culture. You cannot just carry your culture and transplant it in another foreign nation. It is very, very important, right. In another sense, if you have inter-community marriages, you have this problem also. Culturally, you see, the husband and wife are different. So, these problems will have to be adjusted. So, these are important issues in the organizational well-being, that is the point. As important as your technology and machinery and so on and so forth, they are very important issues. When companies merge together or when you acquire a company, cultural issues become very dominant and very important for the success of the joint entity. So, the functions of cultures, we say it is a boundary defining role. What does that mean? That it differentiates between different organizations. So, one organization is subscribed by its boundary. And what is that boundary? Culture. So, it is a boundary defining role. It is a differentiator. Organizational members are given a sense of identity. Okay. Sometimes what happens to people, if they work for a long time in a strong, culturally strong organization, when they retire or separate at the end of their career, they have a loss of identity, because maybe they have always considered them as a Tata Steel person, because they worked in Tata Steel, lived in Jamshedpur town. So, they are left with a big vacuum that no longer can they say they are Tata employees. So, what are they? There is a loss of identity. So, are given a sense of identity is very common. People suffer greatly when they retire, because in a strong organization culture, they have identified themselves fully with that organization culture, and they feel a loss, feel there is no anchor when they retire and separate.
So, how do you give the personal identity?
You have to get other identities in life, not only your organizational identity. You have to have social identities also, you have to have other interests, not only your work setting. And that is the reason, to some extent, you can say, even in the engineering course, why do we have a curriculum where we give you breadth subjects? What for? To instill in you some interest. Say we can instill an interest in you of human behavior. Maybe you can do many things which is different there from your main line of work, which may be as a project engineer or a highly technical job. You have to get identities. Some people take up gardening, it becomes a passion with them. So, when they retire, they do not feel that loss, because now they say, we have more time. Earlier we had very little time for it, now we have time. Some people take up, they like traveling, then they have more time for travel. Okay. And many people take up social work within their own community, because you have some experience. There are small NGOs, for instance, you can work there, give your expertise. So, you have to have other interests. Okay. Organization members are given a sense of identity. It helps people in the organization to develop a commitment to the organization, which is larger and more noble than simply one's own self interest. Do you understand that? Is it clear? Your own self-interest may be to get your money, monthly salary, your promotion, your increment. These are very important to you and nothing wrong with it. But the culture, if you are the Tata man, it gives you something that Tatas, they do something you are proud of it. Say they do something for the community, they set up a hospital. So, to some extent as a Tata employee, you feel that something good has happened, because it is more noble than only your self-interest. It also provides the rules, we said, formalization, the implicit do's and don'ts to the employees, which increase the social system stability. What does that mean? Social system stability? What does it mean? You work in a good company with a good culture, you become good citizens, to put it very simply. You are bekar, you do not work anywhere, you are lafanga, you are roaming around here and there. You may start stealing, doing something wrong, because you do not have a cultural identity. So, you bring in social instability, but if you have, all right, a strong culture in which you exist, it gives you, all right, or makes you give for social stability also. It is good for the country, good for the locality. It gives meaning to the appropriate behavior by shaping the attitudes of people. Clear? Because values, we said earlier on when we studied the topic, they shape your attitudes, is it not? And culture is nothing but common shared values. If it is a strong culture, you have strong common shared values, all right. And it gives meaning to the appropriate behavior. Why are you behaving? What is the meaning, giving meaning? Because these are the values of the strong culture in which you are existing. Ultimately, the culture dictates what is appropriate behavior and common employee goal, sometimes more powerfully than the declared policies of the management. Understood or not? If not, ask questions. It is so powerful that sometimes it can pull up their own managements from taking wrong decisions, because they say it is going against this established culture. In this company, our management should not take this decision, because it is against our culture. So, it is very, very powerful. So, at the end of this discussion, what do we feel? We feel culture is a good thing, a strong thing, or a bad thing. What is it? Huh? Good. So, you as manager should try to encourage establishment of a good culture, good and strong, because there are many benefits as we have seen. However, in life everything comes with a price. As they say in America, there is no such thing as a free ride or a free lunch. If you want something good, you have to pay a price for it. And what is the price you pay for having a good and strong culture? There is a price. Culture as a liability. It becomes sometimes a barrier to change. It does not allow you to change. It prevents attempts to change entrenched cultural behavior. Everyone understands what is entrenched? Entrenched? You understand? No? You must ask me. Entrenched means something which is rooted, fixed, does not move. The reference here is to a trench. You know a trench? You dig a trench, and in that trench you plant something or keep something that is fixed and rooted. So, entrenched means something which is fixed position, you do not want to move from there or change it. So, entrenched cultural behavior, it prevents, even when required critically to cope successfully and adapt to business, social and political changes which are necessary for the well-being of the organization. In the life of an organization, there are occasions and times when long established procedure has to be changed Culturally, Japan used to boast and used to support very strongly lifetime employment, looking after everything about the employee. But there were times of recession and prolonged recession, when just in order for them to survive, the companies, they had to shed people, all right. Although culturally it was totally against the national culture and the organizational cultures, but they had to do it, and it was not easy to do it, because entrenched culture means that is very, very difficult to change, and it was a trade off, it was a choice. Either the company goes under or you shed people. It was a very difficult thing to do. Barrier to diversity makes for regimentation and cloning. Everyone understands what is cloning? Have you heard of a clone? Tell us, what is a clone? Yeah, example? Say you do genetic engineering, and a clone is produced, looks exactly like you, maybe thinks exactly like you, but is not you, it is a duplicate. So, that is a clone. So, makes for regimentation and cloning. What does this cloning mean? It is so regimented, so strong a culture, that the uniqueness of the individual seems to vanish. Each behaves like the other, Isn't that what regimentation also means? When you form a regiment in the army, what do? You do drilling. What is the drilling? Marching. Ek, do, ek, do, ek, do, ek. Everyone does the same. So, that is regimentation, drilling. So, this becomes a barrier, strong cultures. Strives for employee organizational fit, even when harmful to the organization, to perpetuate its norms. That means it does not want to change. Whatever is the norm, you try to change it, it will try to overbalance your policies and your actions, and see that the old stability remains. And sometimes strong cultures which are different in two merging organizations, as we mentioned a little earlier, in a takeover or a merger of two organizations, destroy successful chances of mergers. See, very often when two companies are going for merging, they look at each other, they do what is called due diligence, that is, they look at all the financial figures, the assets, liabilities, all right. What they do not look at very carefully is the cultures, and cultures are equally important, sometimes more important for the success of the merged venture than as the financial results and the assets and liabilities of each of the company. And often you find that it has failed mainly due to not mixing of the two cultures. It is like a transplantation operation. You have a kidney transplant. What happens? Often the body will reject that kidney. And what happens then? The patient dies. So, mergers sometimes are very unsuccessful because the cultures do not vibe and they do not synchronize and mesh together. Any questions? Okay. Then as managers, you may be called upon one day to create and sustain a culture. You may also be called upon to change a culture. We have a topic called change management, right? That will talk of how to change the culture. So, organizations, founders play the major role in creating the culture. They impose their vision on all the members, do not they? If you are to form a company, that is what we will do. After all, let us go back to the same family unit. Do not we get our values from our parents, the first thing? So, similarly a company gets it from its parents. The parents are the promoters of the company, the founders. But thereafter, after those founders are no more, all right, or even before that, thereafter they perpetuate and sustain the vision by hiring like-minded people and then indoctrinating and socializing them to the desired, desired means what they think is good, may not be good, but they think, that is why in inverted commas, to the desired way of thinking and behaving and acting as their role model. This is how you are creating and sustaining the culture, starting from the founders, passing on your values to them. The organization's success is seen as an outcome of the founder's vision and the behavior fashioned by him, which further reinforces the culture. What does this mean? It means, say, when J.N. Tata set up Tata Steel prospered, because those were the days when there was hardly any industry in our country. We are talking about 1910, so early, 1 century ago. Very little industry was there. All the raw materials were taken, sent to England, processed there, and finished goods were sold here, basically. That was the situation. And there was great disbelief. Everyone felt that Tatas, at least the Britishers, would never be able to make steel, because it's a very complex thing. A steel plant, to make steel is one of the most difficult things, particularly 100 years ago. Look at the high temperatures, look at the process which is used. It's high tech in those days. So, therefore, the outcome of the founder's vision and cultural norm behavior fashioned by him to reinforce the culture, all right. Thereafter, the selection and promotion practice of the founder's behavior is substituted by top management. When he set it up, he set up culture. And what was his culture which he set up? First was a culture that we can do it, isn't it, in spite of all adversities. That means there is determination of the culture. Another culture which he set up is, whatever we do it not only for ourselves, but something higher and nobler, that is for the community. Create an environment, give back to the community, build a township, build roads, plant trees, all right, adopt villages. So, this kind of a culture. Thereafter, the selection and promotion practices of the founder's behavior is substituted by top management. The kind of people he had hired, he passed on the same culture to them, all right. And then as time passes, you have stories, rituals and symbols, and these also act as powerful perpetuators of the established culture. So, when we hear stories of older organizations, these stories are carried on from year to year, and it is a binding thread of the culture. Do you have any stories in IIT that you have heard? I will tell you a story. The first director was Dr. Gyan Ghosh, all right. And the first year when the students came, all right, the story goes, I do not know how far it is true, it is part of the myth and the culture. In mathematics examination, there was very heavy failure, students failed. Then Sir Gyan Ghosh, or Dr. Gyan Ghosh called all the faculty, not only mathematics, and told them that, professors, this is very, very surprising, because these students cannot fail. They are the best students, they are the cream of the country. I cannot accept that they have failed. What can be the explanation? He says that the only explanation is they were not taught properly. So, it is the duty of us professors to teach students so that they do well, because the students are good. If they fail, it is the professor's fault. So, this is a story which you have heard, and therefore, in IIT this is a tradition and a culture. Even if you fail once, you say try again, then finally you will pass. You have to earn that credit, right? Right or wrong? Yeah. And most of you pass the first time when you join IIT, right? Because this is the story, and it is a powerful part of our culture. We are very student oriented in IIT. Everything that is good for the student, we say we try to do that. Okay. Any questions? And then last, you see, there is a kind of classification by supported by research by Gaffee and Jones, whom, and this identified 4 types of culture: networked culture, mercenary culture, fragmented culture and communal culture. Everyone knows the word mercenary? No? Mercenary means something which is done for money. You have mercenary soldiers. That means they are not soldiers belonging to the army of any nation. They are soldiers who are professional. Anyone who gives them money, any country, they will go and fight for them. Okay? That is mercenary, for money. So, network culture is high on sociability and low on solidarity, and we will see what that is. Mercenary culture is low on sociability and high on solidarity. Fragmented culture, low on sociability and low on solidarity, and communal culture, high on sociability and high on solidarity also. And you can summarize this with this little matrix here, and you see solidarity on the x axis and sociability. So, you know the meaning of these two terms, solidarity, that means you stand together solidly. Sociability, you are people oriented, all right. So, if it is in this quadrant, you are high on sociability, but you are low on solidarity. So, we call this sort of culture a networked culture. If you are here, you are high on both, high on sociability and high on solidarity. We call it communal culture. And here fragmented, you are low on solidarity, low on sociability, fragmented in bits, not very cohesive. And mercenary, money, you are high on solidarity. We all want money, that culture, but low on sociability. That is, there is no friends and enemies out here, it is money. Money is king. That is our solidarity. Okay? So, any questions? All right. So, we end our topic on organizational culture today, and then next class we will take up change management and organizational stress. Thank you very much.